Thank you. Good evening and welcome to our network chat, recording and producing an album. Tonight we are so excited to host a behind the scenes look and listening party for Stravinsky, Alone No More by the Hartwick Faculty Wind Octet. As Andy said, I'm Paula Lee Hobson, Vice President for College Advancement, and it's my pleasure to formally introduce you to Dr. Andrew Pease, Assistant Professor of Music and Director of Instrumental Music. He directs our wind ensemble, brass ensemble, and teaches conducting, orchestration, composition, and brass methods. Dr. Pease spearheaded the creation of this path-breaking album with the Hartwick Faculty Wind Octet, released by Mark Masters. Prior to joining Hartwick, he completed his DMA degree in wind conducting at Arizona State University, studying with Gary Hill and Wayne Bailey. His work there earned him the 2017 American Prize in Wind Band Conducting at the collegiate level. Good evening, Dr. Pease. Would you please share with us how this magical project came to be?
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul Lee. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone who's with us tonight to celebrate this accomplishment of getting this album out into the world. The history of this, if I'm being especially grandiose about it, goes back almost 100 years to, of course, Stravinsky's Octet, which he wrote in 1923. Apparently, he came up with the orchestration in a dream, but it's very distinctive. We have a flute, a clarinet, two bassoons, two trumpets, and two trombones. Nothing had been written for this combination before that time, 1923, and until recently, nothing had been written for it since either. So we had an opportunity here to add to this repertoire. It's a wonderful piece. It's one of the hallmarks of neoclassicism. It is chamber music for winds, and let me tell you, when you're studying for your doctorate in wind conducting, this is something that is on everyone's radar. Everyone wants to do it, but you always had to do it by yourself. Like by itself until recently. So I took steps in that direction when I had a group called the Sun Valley Chamber Winds in Arizona. Shortly after getting my doctorate, I thought, hey, I have these friends who are composers, so I'm going to ask Oliver Kaplan, who I've known since my undergrad, and Chris Lamb, who I met at Arizona State, to write music for this combination, and we'll do a concert like this. So great, we did a concert with Oliver's piece and Chris's piece and the Stravinsky Octet out in Arizona. Well, I thought that shouldn't be the end of it, so I ended up at Hartwick in 2016 and sort of had this floating around, like, we have some fantastic faculty here. We should really get together and do something amazing. So how about we do this Stravinsky thing again? So I started asking around, say like 2017, 2018, hey, Anna Laura, how'd you feel about doing some Stravinsky? Hey, Daniel, do you want to play some Stravinsky? And so we sort of assembled a team that way, and ended up with enough forces. We had to bring in some guest artists, but it was wonderful. We were able to use our connections as faculty to find guest artists in the area to come in and play with our faculty on this. So I also knew that around the same time I was doing this, that first concert, Michael Markowski was writing his own piece for Stravinsky Octet instrumentation, so bring that in too. And then I met Joanne Harris that same year, March of 2019, and then by August we had her writing a brand new piece just for us. So that was a world premiere of the Joanne Harris Dawn Chorus for our concert. So the way the whole thing went down, we had to secure funding for the whole thing. Thankfully, we had the music department. We had a grant from the Foreman Foundation, which brings guest artists to campus. And then we also got funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities, so we could have all the composers do a panel on our campus. And that allowed us not only to have the composers do this panel for our students and for the greater community, we were able to have them work with our students in our wind ensemble, and also partner up with our students in my composition class to give them some time on their work. And then also the students were able to be producers, assistant producers on the recording. the recording, the whole thing happened in the fall of 2019. So September 27th, we had a concert in addition to that panel. And the 28th and 29th, we spent all day in the Anderson Theater, both days, recording the thing with the students as our assistant producers, and the composers still sticking around to be producers of their own tracks. And from there, we went into editing. Now, COVID put a little bit of a wrench in the editing process. We had to. I was going to go to Buffalo to the Mark Studios to sit there in person and do it with them. Well, we couldn't do that. April 4th, 2020. What were you doing? Not driving to Buffalo, that's for sure. So it took a little while, but here we are finally, the beginning of 2021, putting out this album that we recorded at the end of 2019, and it's really, really incredibly exciting to do this and to see it all come together after all this time, all this planning. So I'd like to just get into the music, unless Paul Lee, do you have anything to add?
I'm just enthralled. Please continue. It sounds marvelous.
Thank you. And so we'll go right down we'll go in the order that the album presents itself. So we'll start with Joanne Harris, who wrote Dawn Chorus, and just a brief intro of Joanne. She's been writing film music, has been orchestrating in that area, and teaches at all kinds of places, and recently is a transplant to Cooperstown. So we're so glad to have her in our neck of the woods now. So Joanne, would you like to say a couple words about Dawn Chorus?
Sure. So when Andy approached me to take part in this project, I was really honored, and I was excited to be the opener. So the idea was, I had heard the works of my colleagues and of course the Stravinsky, and so to write something that would sort of set the stage for these works that were already in existence. And so at the time, I was living in Jersey City, and I was doing a bit of urban bird watching on my roof. And at the same time, I sort of came across a poem by a British poet, Sacha Dugdale, called Dawn Chorus. And I'll read you a little excerpt. I have woken to the dawn chorus, and even before it sounded, I dreamed of it. Loud, unbelievably loud, shameless, raucous. And I loved tying that into sort of, there are parts in the Stravinsky too that are shameless and raucous. And I thought, yeah, that's the energy we want to bring, to the dawn of this concert.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Before we do that, I put up the wrong background. Excuse me. It's easy to fix. I just want to make sure we know who all the players are. Some of them are here. Not everyone was able to make it, but here we go. You see, this is on flute, Ana Laura Gonzalez. She's our flute professor and music theory. On clarinet, we have John Friedrichs. On bassoon 1, we had Daniel Hain, who is now the music department chair. And bassoon 2, Cornelia McIver. I do not see Cornelia. And let's see, that's trombone 2, Frank Meredith. Where's Frank? Come on, man. There's Paul Blake. He's our trombone instructor. Matt Oram here on trumpet 1, who teaches at Oneonta High School Middle School. And Carl Seeley. Come on, Carl. There you go. It's Carl Seeley over here, who is now chair of the faculty. So a bunch of people got promoted off of this album somehow. So that to them, and we'll be. I'll keep these guys up here. You'll see plenty of the composers; they're all here. But let's get playing now. I'm going to play about a minute and a half of each piece, just to give you a little flavor. So here is the beginning of Dawn Chorus. And that's just a taste. It goes on to some beautiful slow section, and then a reprise of the opening that ends so strongly. Give it up for Joanne and Dawn Chorus. All right. Now I'm just consulting my notes here because I forgot to put everything in order the way I was supposed to. Here we go. So we're going to just hear briefly now from Paul Blake, who, as I said, is our trombone instructor at Hartwick, low brass, and he played first trombone on this recording. And Paul Blake is also a Hartwick alum, class of 2001. Take it away, Paul.
Hey, greetings, everyone. It's great to see everyone. I haven't seen most of you since we completed this project, but just listening to the music, and before we started, I turned on some of it and looked over some of my notes of playing and just brought back all the memories. It was great. Thank you, Dr. Pease, for putting such a fabulous project together. I really enjoyed every moment of it, and it was great playing with such a astute group of people and talented musicians. Couple of things that just to kind of give you a perspective from a performer. When you sit in, you get a piece of music and you start learning it. At least for me, I cannot wait to get to the point of where the whole group is together, because all I know is my part. Even if I listen to a recording, it's not the same. So it was very exciting to finally put all that practice together with a group, and then especially with a group like this, it was really quite outstanding job to be able to do that. The thing I really enjoyed the most about this project was having the composers there. When you play a piece of music, a lot of times you don't get that input directly from the composer to know what really inspired them to write this piece of music, and to get some of the passion from them behind what we're doing. And so just to having them there and giving input and feedback instantaneous like that, to me is priceless. And I enjoyed getting to know all four of them, and really trying my best to play it exactly how they wanted to have it done. So, and I think Chris Lamb knows me or something, because he has a spot in the one music that says to play it violently. And so I did my very best. And if you know me at all, that was a lot of fun. So Chris, thank you for that. You spoke right to me there, but, and working with Mark in the recording aspect, he outstanding professional in the work he did, along with Andy, editing all of this, just great work. And I really enjoyed every moment of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you to all the performers. It was really just a dream to work with you guys. To put it in perspective, usually with a college group, you have, say, 9 or 10 rehearsals on maybe 45 minutes worth of music to put together. With these guys, we had 4 rehearsals on an hour's worth of music that was at a much higher level than that, and that the only thing that anyone had played before was the Stravinsky, which was less than a quarter of the program. So it was quite a reach. And when you hear some of the other music, you'll understand why it was quite a reach. But we reached for it, and we got it, and we have it on this recording now, and it's just so exciting. All right, onward now to the next tune. Let me introduce Michael Markowski, who first made his name as the winner of a composition contest when he was in high school, but then went on to get a film degree at Arizona State University. Ironically, we did not meet each other at Arizona State. We met in New York City as I was about to move to Arizona, and he had just moved to New York. But we've known each other for several years, and I always look forward to playing Markowski music, and now I get this one forever. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about your tune.
Of course. Good evening. You've probably heard the word Machiavellian at some point, or maybe you've used it to describe somebody particularly cunning, scheming, or unscrupulous. The word comes from the Italian philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, who in the early 16th century wrote a book called The Prince, that advised princes and kings on how to maintain and usurp political power, usually by any means necessary. This is a man who wrote, "It is better to be feared than to be loved if one cannot be both." This is a man who wrote, "Men are so simple that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. My octet is designed to sound mechanical and calculating, as if some evil plan was slowly being conjured up. The overall style tips its hat to early Italian Renaissance music. Courtly brass fanfares grow in power and in intensity as the harmonies within them become darker and more dissonant. This is Machiavelli's Conscience.
Thank you. We're going to hear a little bit of the end of this. Let's see. Got to have the right thing up here and share with you. Okay. Let's see. Just going to pause for a second to find the right spot. Forgive my machinations here. It's pretty good. Okay. Yep. Good stuff. Oh, thank you, Michael. Every time. Okay. We had several students involved in this process, as I said. They worked with, each of them got to work with one of the composers and show their own work to this composer. And they were in the control room as assistant producers throughout the recording process. Those students are all here tonight. We have one alum, actually. He graduated in 2020. This is Russell Elster. Hi, Rusty. And then we have three seniors now, Julia Butts, Ushuaia Diaz, and James Dana. And James is going to give us some of the student perspective on this process. Take it away, James.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Pease. All right. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see everybody again. Wow. This is crazy. All right. So like Dr. Pease said, we were part of a composition class taught by Dr. Pease. And part of this was that we got to speak with some of these composers that were here. I was with Michael Markowski. Pretty cool. And we all showed our own pieces to them. We had to write pieces and show it to them, and they gave us feedback, and that was really cool, talking to like an actual composer. So that was pretty interesting, is getting a real composer's aspect of it. Like Dr. P said, another aspect of what we did there was we were assistant producers in the back behind the scenes, basically taking takes of everything. They took a little snippet of, a couple of meshes here, a couple of seconds here, and then the composers were listening to it in headphones, and then they gave comments to the performers to make it sound the best that it could. And it was furious work behind the scenes. You had to start a timer, record the measures that you started, measures that you ended at, stop the timer when they stopped, record both those times, start and stop time, to the nearest, I think it was, I have it up, to the nearest second, if you could. And then also with the comments that were there. So it was pretty intense stuff behind the scenes. We had to do that for each of the composers. And we each got to work with our own composer's piece. So me, Michael Markowski being my composer that I was talking to, I was doing his piece behind the scenes, taking all the takes. So yeah, it was pretty interesting to see all of the stuff that professional recording has to go through. And it was really interesting. And I think I'd do it again. If I was given the chance, I'd do it again. It was pretty cool. Thank you, Dr. Pease, for letting me speak. It was nice to see everybody, and it was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Yeah, now we'll go on with some more of the music. I have now for you Oliver Kaplan. Now, as I said, Oliver and I met when we were both undergrads at Dartmouth College. I first knew him as a freshman piccolo player in the Dartmouth Marching Band. And then, lo and behold, by the time he was a senior, he'd become a composer, went on to an advanced degree in composition at Boston Conservatory, stayed in Boston, and now runs the Juventus New Music Ensemble, which has kept us alive during COVID with their consistent and consistently high quality virtual concerts, like live streamed virtual concerts. I had the pleasure of working with this group before the pandemic as well, and I can say that Oliver has really, well, first of all, his music's incredible. Second of all, he's done such great work with this group, and I'm excited to see more. So Oliver, tell us a little bit about Krumholtz Variations.
Thank you for your vision with this album. I think just listening to the clips of everyone's pieces, it reminds me that so much of the music on this album literally would not exist if Andy hadn't had the brainchild for this project. How cool is that? Aside from my love of piccolo, my early pieces were very piccolo heavy. I'd say one of the greatest sources of inspiration for me in my life and in my music has always been nature, and it's a recurring theme in many of my pieces. And I think it's a good thing I love nature, also because going for hikes outdoors is pretty much the only thing we can do right now. So it gives this piece new meaning for me. But this piece was inspired by hiking mountains up into the Alpine zone. Krumholtz is a German word that means crooked wood, and it refers to just you're sort of like just about to break above the tree line into the Alpine zone. There are these like twisted, gnarly trees that have been shaped by the elements, and they're kind of cool and quirky. So that's the title of the piece, and it's a series of short variations, each inspired by a different aspect of life in the Alpine zone. And we have dawn, marmots, which are these cute furry little rodents, alpine meadow, ptarmigan, which are a member of the grouse family, the summit, headwaters, cloudburst, and dusk. And I think what I would leave you with is, on the one hand, is you've got a piece about nature and this kind of nature tone poem. And on the other hand, I think one of the things that moves me so much about the Alpine zone is you have these like glorious moments of beauty that blossom in basically some of the most harshest conditions on the planet, with a very short growing season. And in there, I see sort of a metaphor for human resiliency and finding beauty in the face of difficult times, which is, of course, something we're all working hard to do right now. So that's a little bit about Krumholtz Variations.
Thank you, Oliver. We're going to hear a little bit of the middle of this one, which will encompass two of the variations. First, you'll hear the end of Summit, which imagines, of course, looking out over, celebrating an accomplishment and then looking out over where you've been and this vast landscape, and then a little bit of Headwaters. Here you go. Oh, wait, screen share. That's important. right. Much as I hate to leave you hanging on a dominant chord, we must continue. The next piece is the biggest one on the recording, biggest as in longest, and it's from Chris Lamb. Now, as I mentioned, I met Chris Lamb at Arizona State. We were in a composition class together our first semesters, which was interesting. We actually had to write music for each other before we really even knew each other, which was really fun. I got to know Chris that way, and then he wrote music for the Arizona State Concert Band when I was the director, and then when I my first job out of Arizona State was at a community college, he joined the band there, helped us out, and like arranged stuff for the band. And little did I realize that was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how prolific a composer he is. Because I said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing with my chamber group next month. How'd you like to write a piece for Stravinsky Octet?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll do that." And 21 and a half minutes of music later, we had this incredible and widely varied piece. So Chris, why don't you tell us a thing or two about the Chamber Symphony?
So hi everybody. Yeah, the Chamber Symphony is essentially based off of paradoxes. So these ideas of these sort of questions or posits that have sort of impossible answers. And they generally, when a paradox is written, it's written in almost a flowery style. It's got an over-the-top idea. So one of them is all about questions, and you could easily just write the questions down, but instead it's often phrased as a question that a crocodile is posing to parents as it holds their child. And it's this scene that's written. And I thought that these scenes evoked so much interesting imagery, and the questions really get in your mind. They really, because they don't have an answer, because they seem impossible, they just stick around there. So at around the same time that Andy asked me to write this piece, I had just randomly stumbled across a paradox called the Ship of Theseus, and had gone down this rabbit hole of what paradoxes were. And those two parts of my life right at that moment just collided, and I wrote a collection of essentially scenes from these different paradoxes. Yeah, it was a ton of fun to write. instrumentation was really, really exciting for me. I'm a trombonist, so having 2 trombones in there was really, really exciting. And also, I have to say, obviously a huge thank you to Andy, but also a huge thank you to the performers. You know, without performers, composers, you know, we don't have a voice. You guys bring to life the music, and you brought to life these scenes for me in such an exciting and amazing way. And it was really, really an honor to work with all of y'all.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to hear a little bit of 2 of those scenes. So he said a collection of scenes. There's 6 of them. It's basically an introduction, then the crocodile stomp, then the problem with Monty Hall, and the ravens and the arrow, and then it comes back to the ship of Theseus, which puts them all together. I'd like you to hear a bit of 2, and you're going to hear the end of the problem with Monty Hall, which is kind of a scherzo gone bonkers, and the beginning of Finding Ravens, which is maybe the sweetest thing you've ever heard. And it's just amazing, the contrast. Let's share so you can hear. All right. I would just let that play forever if we weren't on a schedule. Thank you, Chris. Give it up for Chris. All right, and that leads us to our final composer. I think we all know his name, but he, well, it's kind of like we're living in his shadow sometimes, right? But what an inspiration for all this other music. What's so distinctive about the Stravinsky Octet is, yes, the instrumentation, but also it is one of his very first neoclassical pieces. That is, it's paying attention to classical forms in a way that previously even Stravinsky hadn't. He was known for writing things like The Rite of Spring and The Firebird before this. But then, wouldn't you know it, World War I and a global pandemic happened, and all of a sudden he was retooling his musical style. Also, Stravinsky's known, you can see him in this picture. He looks kind of dour, like maybe he's judging you. There's actually a wink in there. You really get a sense of humor out of Stravinsky. So I thought we would play a portion of the final movement of the Stravinsky just to hear, and then I'll have a couple of other things to say when we're done with that. Here we go. Yes, share. And let's see, that'll be, well, somewhere around here. Yes, that should be good. Oh, that's all right. I had to play it. I had to press play first. And if that last note isn't one of the best last notes in all of the history of recording, then I don't know what is. I just so pleased how that all came out. Now, to put it in context a little bit, we recorded all the other music first. We saved the Stravinsky Octet for last because there were a million other recordings of it, right? It's a little bit of hubris to say, like, yeah, I'm going to make a recording of the Stravinsky Octet. Well, guess what? We did, and it went very, very well. And as the last thing we did after some really taxing work. I will also say, though, yes, it was taxing work, but it was joyful work. I remember leaving those 2 days of recording and just feeling that how well things had gone together, how well we had worked together, and how it just felt good to do all of it. And that's because of the composers, because of the performers, especially being in that room together all day for 2 days, and because of Mark's management of us as well. So I have I see there's questions starting to pop up. I have one more thing, and this is sort of an announcement as much as anything else. I got wind of this, pun intended, thanks to Michael Markowski earlier today, and I'm not gonna say what it is. I'm just gonna play it, if I can get it to work. And screen share. Okay.
Hi, I'm David Lawrence, and on our next episode of Wind and Rhythm, we feature the Wind Octet. We'll hear Stravinsky's famous octet for wind instruments, as well as some new commissions, as played by the Hartwick Faculty Wind Octet, right here at the Gathering Place for people who love band music, wind and rhythm.
So we're going to be on a radio show that's syndicated nationally, well, to certain markets nationally, but it's also you can watch it online, and I'll have that link. Actually, I should just put it in the chat how you can do that. We found that out today that this is happening. All right, are there questions?
Yes, we do have a few.
Wonderful.
So Andy, have you received any news of other folks following suit with this work? Meaning, has anyone else tried to do this sort of octet work?
In terms of playing, absolutely. Michael's piece, for instance, was written as a companion for a concert like this. And has it been played anywhere else, Michael? Besides myself and Sean?
Yeah, it's especially within the last year, it's picked up quite a bit because a lot of people are doing, of course, chamber music. So I couldn't tell you how many, but a handful for sure.
And the same is true. Oliver's piece was a consortium. That means several groups got together to enable him to compose it, to fund the composition of it, and several of them performed it at the time, and that's still happening. Same with Joanne's piece was a consortium commission. Joanne, how has that gone?
I've got some bites out again in the time of COVID for people looking for smaller chamber music to play.
Yeah, and Oliver, go ahead.
My piece has just been programmed for performance at the Penn State New Music Festival, March 19th. It's going to be a live performance. Online, sorry, a virtual live performance.
Yeah, we can perform at Hartwick, just not with audiences. How about that? Chris, any news on yours?
No, it's hard to get 22-minute pieces thrown on some programs.
But well, guess what? Now it's gonna be on international radio, so
yes.
you'll have a chance. And I am a devoted booster of your music. I'll make it happen. And now I know also there are other composers who have done this. I know Carl made a comment to someone recently that he played the entire repertoire for this ensemble. That's not quite true. There's probably another concert's worth, but we're talking maybe 3 or 4 more pieces, and all of them, I think, have been written in the 21st century. And they're coming out now, or they've been written in the last 5 years, right? Other concerts like this are happening, but we're definitely like the first out of the gate, so that's exciting. Are there other questions?
Yes. So this is for any of the panelists. Has this experience made you attempt to produce anything else in this octet formation?
Seeing no one else say anything, I'll say no.
Okay.
Michael?
I feel like we just learned how to write for this instrumentation. It's such a weird instrumentation. You've got 4 brass versus 4 tiny little woodwinds, and it's easy, especially in my piece, for the brass to overpower the woodwinds. So, I feel like I just learned how to write for them. And so I'd love to write another Stravinsky Octet type of piece, but probably not going to happen for some time.
And this question is specifically for Joanne. Mike writes in, the Dawn chorus reminds him of 2 very different sound suites. First, listening to the birds in his backyard serenading in spring, and second, listening to the muezzin's calls to morning prayer to Muslims in Karachi, Pakistan during participation in a series of Army amphibious assault exercises. So was that in your intent with the music, especially in light of the poem you selected?
That's really fascinating imagery, Michael. Thank you for sharing. That particularly wasn't in my consciousness, and I'm going to have to hear. If you want to chat me some examples of links where I could hear that, I'd be very curious to hear what you're speaking about. I was really focused on birds. There was a tree outside my apartment in Jersey City, and I myself am an early bird, so to speak. And so it was summertime when I started getting into bird watching. And in the very early hours where I'd be sitting at my keyboard working, and the birds would just be so annoying right before dawn, hence the dawn chorus. And one day I went to shut the window, they were so loud. And then I heard this one like wren kind of doing like a triplet rhythm against everybody else. And I was like, I should kind of consider leaning into this and seeing what happens. And sure enough, I started to watch every day. When the sun would come out, they would just become still and very quiet. So there was all of this chatter, and then the sun would rise and they would ostensibly go take a nap. I mean, they had done all of that work. So my piece tries to sort of encapsulate that moment right before dawn, and then, of course, the sunrise.
Beautiful. Any final words from the panelists? Those are all the questions that we had.
We'll take more questions for sure if they come up.
Right.
I just wanted to point out, I put in the chat the link to Wind and Rhythm. It's very simple, windandrhythm.com. If you go to it now, it says something about Alfred Reed's birthday. We're at least an episode ahead, or an episode behind or something. Ours is not out yet, but it will be. So monitor this space if you'd like to hear more. Also, the official release date of the recording is February 5th. Say what, Paula Lee? I'm sorry. Okay. I thought I heard somebody. The official release date of the recording is February 5th, 2021. At that point, you'll be able to get to it on all kinds of services. You can Google it now. If you just Google Hartwick, Stravinsky Alone No More, it comes up all over the place. Amazon, Apple Music. Don't buy it from Amazon. Buy it from anywhere but Amazon. That's my one political statement of the night. And it'll be streaming next February. It has just a 1-year period to be like for sale before it streams everywhere. And it has a slightly different title on iTunes and everything. It's going to be just called Alone No More rather than Stravinsky Alone No More because of whatever their guidelines are. But basically the same thing. Any more questions?
And not a question, but just a comment on behalf of Hartwick College. We're so incredibly proud of this. This is an extraordinary work, and we're just so happy and proud for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for this beautiful work.
Thank you.
Very beautiful. So any plans on producing another work like this, a live show and album, all in one rockin' weekend? Post-COVID, of course.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'll be a couple years at least, because this, as you know, it's been nearly a year and a half since September 2019, and it was about a year and a half of prep before that. So time to get the head screwed on again, survive the real and true trauma of COVID. We need to remind ourselves, like, virtually hug a musician if you haven't already, because we're having a very hard time right now, not being able to be with each other and not being able to do the things that we're so good at and that we love so much. But there will be more. Oliver has something to add.
But post-COVID, UVSOS is coming to Hartwick for residency.
Yes, funded again by the Furman Foundation. So that's gonna be very exciting. We're really happy to have you coming, and we've got to sort out all the details of that.
I don't see any other questions. I'll just give it a Okay. Well, like you said, we're all missing live music right now, but I hope you'll all agree that tonight was so inspiring to hear the story behind the music and to meet all of you and to come together as a group to share your talents. I know I'm extremely inspired and can't wait to listen to the full production. And just a reminder, if you would like your own copy of the CD, you can email me at janesj@hartwick.edu and we will be sure to mail one out to you. But thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you so much to our guests. We really appreciate you being here, especially for us on the East Coast. It was a great way to spend the evening on a cold winter's night. So thank you all for attending and being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night and stay safe.